So, the William Carey book called Faithful Witness, The Life and Mission of William Carey by Timothy George is a great biography on William Carey and his role he played in missions in Baptist history. And so first off, William Carey was born in 1761 in England, and he became a shoe cobbler by apprentice at around age 14. And he did that for a while, and he worked long hours with his master. And there was another guy in there as well, and he would talk, for hours, and he would share the gospel with William, and he would tell him about the gospel, and eventually, he got William Carey was converted, and he became regenerated by God, and just his realization, and God used that other shoe cobbler in William's life, and from there, he just he had a desire to live for God and be zealous for God's work. And but one thing to note about his love for missions is that he was very influenced by Captain Cook and his voyages, and just reading about him going over to islands and discovering and all these unknown islands and people, and that influence also just with his zeal for missions. And another person that really influenced his missionary heart was David Brainerd. In reading his diary, even David Brainerd didn't supposedly do a lot in his 4 years of missionary work, but afterwards a lot of people were influenced by his diary, and William Carey was one, and very influenced by the words that he used to describe his body. Like, he did not care what happened to him as long as he was doing God's will, and sharing the gospel to people who didn't hear it before. And that really influenced William Carey as well, just as well as reading the Bible and reading the Great Commission, and understanding that it meant for us to go. So he, after his conversion, he became a pastor at a church, and he lived in a small house with his wife and kids, and two kids didn't even make it that long after they were born. They died. And it's important. And he got sent to Nottinghamshire in England to preach and for the people, the mission society, and he preached a sermon, and he's quoted with having said, expect great things, attempt great things, and that he meant, in regards to missions, and he preached from Isaiah a lot, in regards to his heart, and how, expect great things, and that was important to him, and it showed in his life where he really did expect great things. He was zealous, he's zealous not only for missions abroad, but also at home. Like, he was zealous for his family. Like, he expected, things to happen, and from the first time he talked to them after his conversion. And he was very zealous for the conversion of sinners and heathens, and it showed. And so then from there, he was sent in 1792, and he gave that famous sermon, and then he was commissioned a year or two later to go to India with another man named Thomas, and they would go and be missionaries there. And it's important to note that they went as illegal aliens, didn't do it right, and so what they were doing had been wrong, sharing the gospel there, and just everything like that. And also his wife, his wife was illiterate. She did not share his missionary calling, and she was heavily burdened with being a mother, and just being a mother of children, and she was pregnant before he went to India, so she didn't come right away. She came later, and one of their children, Peter, died when they were there in India, and she had like a mental breakdown, and she eventually died. But even before she died, William Carey refused to institutionalize her, so she was just left to despair. And and it just seemed, just by looking at it, he kind of neglected her and her needs, and he may have been zealous for God, but he didn't. He suffered in that aspect of his life, and and it's important to know, that such an important figure in history, in missions, in Baptist history, also had his failures, and I think it's important to remember that. So he was a missionary in India, but he didn't see his first real conversion until like 7 or 8 years after he had gotten there, he baptized his first convert, and like, so it took that long. But he didn't care. He tried, and he was consistently trying and preaching, and it paid off, and he was very zealous, and the Baptist denomination has him to thank because he's known as the father of modern missions, and he really started that, and Baptists, you know, have sent missionaries over time and time again after that, and he really sparked that, and it's important to remember that we should go and share the gospel, and like that is what he started, and he was very zealous for, and we should, like he said, expect great things, attempt great things, we should be planners, we should be praying much, like he says, and yeah, so it was a great book.